welcome back to Ray's Talk Show. This is your host, Ray Collazo. Thank you so much for joining us. And, this is with the headlines. I thought it was important that we not only heard from all perspectives, particularly from our Cuban community, but particularly people in the arts and women in the arts who not only are reacting to this as Cubans, Cuban Americans, as members of our community, but also as artists, and how artists provide us a very distinct perspective. So I not only wanted to bring on someone that could bring that perspective, but someone who's one of the hottest, particularly YouTube sensations out there, Cuban American actor, producer. You know her as your Cuban Abuelita, amongst many characters, and a new friend to the show, Jenny Lorenzo. Jenny, welcome to Ray's Talk Show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
¿Cómo está, mija? This is going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be a lot of... Ay, Dios mío. Your fans are very, very excited. Their ears are chirping because they wanted this live. They wanted to... I said, bro, I'm not VH1. Okay, we got to let's go for the podcast thing. But for those that aren't fully familiar with her, and you can check out all of her work at jennylorenzo.com. You may know her from her work at Aggressive Comics channel, BuzzFeed's Pero Like. And now she's a producer and, of course, a great talent on the We Are Me Too YouTube and video platform. She's been named Best Internet Personality at the Geeky Awards. Always fun to get one of those, and very well respected in the online YouTube space and video comic space. And a real Cubana from Miami, de verdad, de lo juro de Miami, and now in LA. Jenny, I really appreciate you joining Ray's Talk Show. This is going to be so much fun for me and our community here.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me.
So we're going to get into, tapping into your inner Cuban Abuelita. And I know a lot of your fans that are going to be listening to this want to hear more about your process and how you became Jenny Lorenzo, one of the hottest YouTube sensations out there, keeping it real for sure. But, we wanted to first get your... hey, I know that for many Cuban and Cuban Americans, there was last Friday, the death of Fidel Castro hitting the news really was a historic moment. And so let's just start, Jenny, with how you heard about his passing and what was just your initial emotional reaction and thoughts.
Man, it was Black Friday, right? The irony.
Yeah, right.
No capitalism. So it's Black Friday, it was a long day. I think it was like nearing the end of the night, and I was on Instagram, and one of my friends out here had posted a photo of Fidel, and he was like, damn, Fidel died. Like, that was his caption. And I was like, bro, this is such a joke. Like there's been countless times that Fidel has supposedly died.
For like decades.
Yeah. Exactly. And I was like, I think there was one time, I don't know if you remember this, but maybe 10 years ago, I remember that the hoax went pretty far, and there were people out on the streets.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, people were partying.
Yes.
I remember very well. I spent a lot of time in Miami in those years, for sure.
Yeah, so that one was like crazy. We all really believed it, and then he was like, you're kidding, this like... So... I at first obviously didn't believe it. I think most people didn't believe it until I saw it on a BBC article. And I was like, well, if these people are talking about it. And before I knew it, within 30 minutes of research and making sure I was looking at the right articles, from good sources, he was dead. And it's something that you wait for your whole life as a Cuban, especially growing up in Miami. Everybody talks about it. Los viejos playing dominoes or drinking cafecito a la carreta. Your grandparents, your parents, the stories are retold almost like weekly. And I never thought that I was going to get that emotional. I legit just started to cry. And my boyfriend, who's Peruvian, Puerto Rican, he was obviously raised in Miami and he gets it, but at the same time, I remember him just looking at me a little weirded out because I don't think he was expecting for me to get emotional.
And for Jenny Lorenzo fans, we know she didn't even cry at The Notebook, which is, that was a tearjerker. I had to, MK, I tell you that The Notebook, we were sitting around with a few couples watching it at somebody's house. I had to leave the room because I refused to cry in front of other people.
Oh my God.
So if you didn't cry, lo bien fuerte, if you didn't cry during a notebook, my friend.
Yeah, I don't know. I am a very emotional person though. Like I cry really easily over some things, but then other things I'm like a rock. So I wasn't expecting to feel this way, and I think what added to the emotion was the fact that my grandparents died on my mother's side. They were the ones who raised me practically, and they passed away just 6 months ago, 5 days apart, very much like the Notebook. Um, and they couldn't live to see this. It was really upsetting. So I think the emotions were a mix of both a happy kind of emotion. It was some sort of strange relief, even though I know very well that his brother is no better and Cuba has a long way to go. Um, but yeah, it was that kind of relief, that happiness for so many people who had suffered under his regime, and the fact that my grandparents couldn't be there, couldn't be here to witness this.
You know, it's interesting, Jenny, because I've heard that strand of motion from so many of our friends around the country because it is so personal because a lot of so many people, particularly from our generation, related to their parents and their grandparents and the emotion of whether they outlived him. You know, in the case of many of our elderly in our community, who literally were the ones that initially, had to flee the island, or they didn't outlive him, and so there's emotions on both sides of it, right? So it's, I mean, you can't get much more personal than relating it back to the dearest members of our family, and so it's such a power. It brought up so many powerful emotions. You know, I was one of the reasons I want to have you on show, Jenny, about this was that I really you were one of the first people I thought about when I heard the news because I was so curious about someone like you who's not only an artist but a comedian about how is Jenny going to react to this and what kind of content is she going to produce, and so I was could you share with our audience kind of as a content creator and a funny woman, what was your process? I mean, obviously I'm sure you felt obligated to do something because and so just share with us your process of kind of thinking through the statement you wanted to make in your art at this moment.
Well, I knew that Friday night, once it was confirmed that he really did pass away, that I had a responsibility to make video content over that weekend. Um, So I immediately started writing all of my Cuban friends in LA. Yes, we exist here. Um, I got, my good friend Mimi, who I don't know if you guys remember her, but I mean, a lot of people do. She's amazing. She's one of the Chonga girls. Um, and, we just we spent the whole day. I made 3 videos, two with her, one by myself. The first one was the vlog that went viral. I wasn't expecting it to go that viral. I just knew that, especially since I just started my own channel, like 3 months ago, apart from aggressive comics, I was like, well, I need to talk about this. There's absolutely no way that I'm not going to talk about this.
That's right.
And I just wanted to be real and raw. I feel like a lot of comedians do that, and it's okay to do that. It's okay to break every once in a while and show your human side. And even within the vlog itself, I always make sure to inject comedy, um, because it really is like the cure-all, I feel, for a lot of things. But it was very difficult for me not to get emotional. Again, it was like a first for me. I'm I'm an actor, yes, but it's very tough for me to cry on command, and it's tough for me to cry on camera. I think what helped was that I was alone. And I wanted to allow that. I wanted people to see. I wanted to educate, and for those who didn't know of the impact that Castro made all those decades, I wanted that to show through. I didn't want to like cheese it up or fake anything. It was all real. And then I knew I had to make an Abuela video. especially because a lot of people were also writing me and they're like, what does Abuela have to say about this? Um, and that one was really tough. And I can't take all the credit for the idea for that video. I was really, that was probably the first thing I was trying to figure out. I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my vlog because it was just my own personal, experience and my feelings. But coming up with an actual idea, my mind was blocked. So I was talking to my good friend, George Kaplan. He and I went to film school together. He's half Cuban. And he and I were just trying to like figure it out. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, how do I turn this comedic, silly character who's always mad and telling their nietos to put on sweaters all the time, to like show a more, serious side of her. And George and I were both, we were inspired. I don't know if you saw the SNL episode that followed the election that opened with.
I was just ready to say that when I saw your video, your vlog, it reminded me of that moment when
Wow.
what's the name of the actress, McKinnon,
Yeah, Kate McKinnon.
that plays Hillary Clinton on SNL.
Yeah.
It's so funny you say that because I was thinking the same parallels that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's he helped me with that idea and he was like, this is very much like when Kate McKinnon decided to take a serious turn with her Hillary Clinton character when she played on the piano. So I was like, let's do this. And I was nervous up until that point. Like it was great how it came together because it started off with that collaboration with my friend, and then there weren't many people available. Some of my Cuban friends were back home in Miami con la pachanga, celebrating for Thanksgiving, so they were over there. So some of the actors that I used in that video, I had never met before. One of them came over for the first time through, I released a statement on Facebook. I'm like, I need Cuban people. Another one I hadn't seen, my friend
That's
Chelsea
awesome.
Duran. I hadn't seen her since elementary drama class, and she showed up. And then Mimi. So it was a really nice, like, just getting together to make something happen. And my friend Ernesto Prieto shot it for me, and another, again, straight hardcore Cuban crew and cast. Um, and I'm happy that I did it. I feel like at least the Cubans and Cuban Americans who experienced the pain and suffering of Castro's regime appreciate it. The video, of course, received a lot of backlash from those
Yeah,
who do
we're
not.
going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was pretty interesting, and you were your candor about receiving it and your reaction was very interesting. But I definitely want to get into that
Yeah.
in a second.
Yeah. So, I mean, all in all, I think it's very important for comedians every once in a while to either take on a role that is not funny. I look up to Jim Carrey a lot for that reason. I look up to Steve Carell, a lot of these actors that are just known to be absolutely hilarious, but they can quickly really just make you cry really terribly. And I really admire that in comedians. And it's like, it's really inspiring. So I was like, well, it's time to give this a shot. It was a risk because I feel like my purpose is to make people laugh. I'm not the most politically savvy person. I am not, I'm not one to talk about social issues and whatnot, but especially ever since coming out to LA and being part of BuzzFeed and Me Too, at the end of the day, even though my area of concentration is comedy, I have a platform that I should use for the greater good. Um, I don't want to sound all superhero esque, but it's a feeling. It's something that I feel. I didn't want to just get into the arts for selfish reasons and for any kind of false money and fame and all that stuff.
Well, I think
Yeah,
yeah, and it was what I appreciated about it was that first of all, I mean, look, comedy very much at times is about masking pain or about you know, giving us a space to talk about uncomfortable truths, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it wasn't out of bounds for you to kind of go there. And I think, look, I mean, the reality is, you know, when particularly, you know, people that are the community that's really craving and looking for kind of Latino flavored content online. You're the first person that came to my mind. I
I
mean, in terms of
appreciate it.
mention, what abuelita and what Jenny's gonna how she's gonna respond, and and represent a flavor of the community and a flavor of perspectives, not only like your personal perspective, but the metaphor, your character, abuelita, and the fact that you did a few different pieces, I think was also very appropriate because you were able to sort of express it from your perspective, but also do something a little more comedic and also a homenaje for that generation, and how a flavor of kind of their how they would potentially react
Yeah.
to something like it, and so going back to the reaction, and I think you posted on Facebook yesterday. I guess I'm not surprised, but I guess the bite of some of the negative or critical feedback, depending how you define it, was very interesting. Can you kind of briefly kind of just let people know kind of what were a few types of attacks you got, and anything you'd like to say about it? I have some thoughts on it, but I mean, you got, I don't know how many of these people responded that way, but you got some pretty nasty responses from a few folks.
Yeah, I mean, of course, on my page, it's a bit more of a bubble because those are people that are there because they like my work and they support me. And a lot of them are Cuban Americans or Cuban that, that went through it, that went through all the bad that Castro brought to Cuba. So the where I received the most hate, I would say, was more so on the YouTube platform, and as well as, for instance, Huffington Post Latino Voices wrote an article on my vlog, and on the page, on the Facebook page, it was just almost every comment was negative. And as well as Me Too. When Me Too released the Abuela video of her reaction to, I till this moment have not read those comments because I knew off the bat uh, that it was not going to be pretty. And my friends have confirmed it because my friends, it almost felt like a battleground. They would write me. They're like, Jenny, I'm tired. I'm tired of defending our experiences. I'm tired. I went in there and I just can't anymore. And I was like, oh my god. I mean, thank God I didn't look. Um,
No, and it's
so
one thing to get attacked kind of from a, I don't know, like a political ideological perspective. But I mean, so people that know, I mean, and I'm just going on what the feedback you reported on.
mhm.
People went there by you being light skinned. People went there by being a quote unquote Cuban elite, a gusana. I mean, it's almost like that, and I think it kind of speaks a little bit to the to how different people kind of view Fidel, and some would argue romanticize Fidel, depending how you look at it. But that it's like there's a lot of projecting on you, a lot of issues that people have that really have nothing to do with the art you presented. You didn't portray yourself other than someone that is Cuban, of Cuban background, and had a perspective on it.
Yeah.
So that was particularly not surprising, but I mean it speaks to how much of a reaction you got.
Yeah, I mean, in any, especially something like this that's political, of course, I'm going to expect people to not agree with me, people to get angry, people to say harsh things. It's expected across the board. Even if I talk about Vaporu, like someone's gonna come out and say something negative. It's just the nature of the whole thing. But I really wasn't expecting commentary about my skin color. It just hurts to see that kind of ignorance. It hurts to see people just completely disregard your truth, which is like my family's truth was that they suffered and they left everything and everyone behind. And it was heartbreaking and it was not easy. And it's like, so you're telling me that I shouldn't feel this way, that my truth is non-existent. I mean, I have my best friend, her parents were doctors in Cuba, and they tried to escape via raft in the 80s, and Fidel's people he sent out government ships, and they tried to sink them. My best friend wouldn't even be here today, if it wasn't had they actually gone through and murdered them, which was their goal, and these are all, it's not even about my family, it's about my friends and my friends' families, especially living in Miami. Nearly everyone went through a very similar situation. Some escaped through the, freedom flights. Some did so with Peter Pan, which that's some of the more heartbreaking stories because they never saw their parents again. They were children. And then even people that escaped via raft. It's just insanity. And all these stories and you see it. And it's not just, there's been a lot of comments that are like, well, you can't just go off of things based on your little grandparents' stories, as if they were little fairy tales, I have family in Cuba right now. They're not happy. This isn't like some folk tale that's been passed on and a lot of, can get lost in translation. This is real. There's people suffering. There's people that I know that are suffering right now. And it for me, I was just shocked, especially with the skin color commentary and the Cuban elite. And I understand. There were people that had businesses. They were doctors. They were lawyers. They were successful. And they also, fled Cuba because Castro took over everything and they were left with nothing. And just because some of the people that fled Cuba were of the elite, why should that make their suffering any less valid? Why should we continue to dehumanize rich people as if they're just nothing? That's kind of silly to me as well. And it can get really murky, Ray, to be honest. I mean, there's a lot of gray area. I
think also,
yeah.
And I think, Jenny, also too, the timing with this election.
I know.
That I think there's a lot of people that are just on guard, frankly. By the way, Ted Cruz. In terms
of race, yes, for sure.
Yeah, they're not helping, but that's another conversation. And I'll say this, you're not the political person I am. My message to our friends out there that, either, can't relate to the experiences of people like Jenny's family or don't have a strong connection with the Cuban American community and maybe are kind of relating to old tired stereotypes. Let me tell you something. Right now, with this administration we're about to get, in this time period in the United States we're about to get, sort of ironic that Fidel passes now, because right now, more than ever, Latinos and really all Americans need to stand together. First of all, to defend people's freedom of expression. Let's start there. Mm-hmm. Well, even before we get to the other stuff, because that's frankly my biggest concern. And again, this isn't you didn't come on here to talk politics, but I think in this era where we're having concerns about some of the things that make America so great, and which stifle the Cuban people to this day, which is the very basics that we around expression, around freedom of journalism, of artists. You can't even get on the internet there for the most part. Things that we take for granted, and now that those things are even thought of as in danger here, we have to be stronger together. So this stuff about feeling complejos about, well, you're lighter and you're thinner, or you grew up in a better neighborhood than me. We're gonna have to get over that and realize that we're all in this together. But that's my 2 cents for the day on that, Jenny. And again, you're listening to the YouTube sensation, the Cuban Abuela herself, Jenny Lorenzo. What an honor. She's on Ray's Talk Show. I know my Ray's Talk Show community is so excited to hear from Jenny Lorenzo. Jenny, before we get into talking about some of your great characters, remind people they can find you and your great work online.
So I'm all over the place. You can find me.
En Cubana, everywhere. She's everywhere at the same time.
Estoy metida en todo el chisme.
Exactamente, mija.
Pero, so yeah, thankfully I have my website. If you go to my website, at the very bottom, it's all my social media handles, but they're kind of all over the place. I wish I had like the same social media handle for everything, pero unfortunately, no. So that might make it easier for you on jennylorenzo.com. And I try to update it as much as possible. So every time a new Abuela video comes out or a new sketch, anything, I upload it to the page. So you can, it's like a one-stop shop, basically. And I also did something similar on my new YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Jenny Lorenzo, where if you go to the channel itself, aside from the, organic uploads, I have all my playlists. So anything that I've ever done is there, from the stuff I did on Pero Like to my Geekgasm episodes to my dance videos, like everything is there. So that's probably the best way to find me.
Yeah, no, and it was great to getting ready for this interview to really dive into your Jenny Lorenzo and your YouTube channel, because I knew of you from your more Latino specific stuff, but you're quite a comic book geek, and your Geekgasm stuff and some real diverse content. She's full of surprises. You gotta definitely check out JennyLorenzo.com and all of her different channels. So where I got hip to you probably about 6 months ago, I think, Jenny, was with your, the Cuban Abuela. I mean, that is really, particularly for the Latin people looking for Latino flavored content, you've really made a name for yourself, I think, over the last year or so. So let's just start. I know people have a lot of questions about her, and I want to peer a little bit into the Abuelita's soul for a second. But let's just start with how you created this character. I guess on some level it's a no-brainer. But what inspired you to really to develop this character of the Cuban Abuelita?
Well, I always enjoy playing older women for some reason. I don't know if it's because I watched a lot of Mama's Family growing up. Or,
it was a great show.
It was a great show. And also a lot of Carol Burnett, Lucille Ball, and I was a big fan of Que Pasa USA. It was accurate representation of my family. So I always, to some capacity, always, as a character actor, was always imitating an abuela and stuff. And then, believe it or not, as you were just talking about the geek content that I produce, Abuela was first introduced or reintroduced as a more official character for a movie review I did for Kick-Ass 2. Okay. And basically it was me as a Cuban Abuela, and that was my superhero persona. So at the time, she was Cuban grandma, defender of all of Miami. Her weapon was a matamosca, and she had a red mask around her eyes, kind of like Raphael from the Ninja Turtles. That's how she kind of just came out as an official character. And then on that channel, I started collaborating with my good friend Annie Jones. She's also another amazing Miami talent. She plays the Cuban Abuela BFF, and her YouTube channel is Indie Annie Jones. I seriously suggest you check her out. She's basically like a Cuban Martha Stewart. So we started doing cooking videos together, and all improvised. We did budín de pan, and it was a blast. The only problem was we were doing these videos, these super guanasa videos, on a platform that was 85% male and not so much Latino either. So it did well, but it wasn't in the right platform. It was like these Cuban abuelas on a geek platform. No one, people were there for the reviews and the comics and the video games. They weren't there to see old ladies talk about Cuba. So that's how the character started, though. And then I brought her on when I started doing videos at BuzzFeed, which eventually then we started Pero Like. And that's where the character really got the right platform, the right voice, and that's when that's when she flourished, basically.
One of the things I appreciate so much about the Cuban Abuela character that you do is that she's an abuela, but she's not a vieja. And let me explain what I mean by that. That I'm curious if this has been purposeful on your part, but that this character is still full of life. She tries technology. She keeps up with pop culture. She checks out guys. She flirts. She's open to dating, kind of thing. And is that been important to you to present sort of a vibrant abuela and someone that's maybe mature but not dying, if that makes sense? Is that? Is that something that's important to you in presenting and developing this character?
It is important to me because I mean, I would hope that I am that vibrant at an older age. I think, and I mean, I'm, I'm 30 years old, but even at 30, I still feel like I'm 12, and I have this weird theory that no matter how old you get, you're always going to feel like a kid. You can look in the mirror and freak out at all the wrinkles and all the white hairs and whatever's growing on your face, but you're gonna always feel like a kid that doesn't know what they're doing. Like, this just trying to get through life, just winging it. And I think that's most of us. We're just winging, life. And that's why I want to keep the vibrancy, There was times that I would question it, like, oh man, maybe I should have her hunch more, or maybe I should, and I do, like, I make sure I give my characters a way of speaking and moving, that it's realistic, but I don't even do a lot of makeup. I don't know if, like, I sometimes add some, like, lines around my mouth, but I don't really want to age her so much, even in the appearance, because I feel like it's more in the attitude and what she's saying that's supposed to be relatable to people, and, like, yeah, I don't know. I think that's why that's just how I envision most people. Like, no matter how old they get, they're always going to be vibrant and feel like children.
When you had, I think Abuela went to Comic-Con, and I remember, I think she was checking out Superman, like grabbing his muscles and stuff, and I remember one day it reminded me of a day that when I went to, I mean, I'm Puerto Rican. The Puerto Rican Cuban stuff is so similar, right? Especially the Spanglish we're going to get into in a second. We're talking to Jenny Lorenzo, the Cuban Abuela, out here on Ray's Talk Show. This is quite a treat. One of our great emerging YouTube stars. And it reminded me, when I saw the video, it reminded me when, I don't know, I was 10 or something. I went to my grandparents' house after school, and I basically, when I walked into the house, it was pretty clear that my grandparents were doing it upstairs. And so, mi abuela went downstairs and was all, like, flustered. And, I'm sitting here, like, I was like, but it was a great moment because it was like a lesson for me. Like, okay, they're in their 70s, they still get down. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, it was like disgusting but admirable at that moment, So it reminded me of that because I'm like, that abuela, she still got, tiene el sabor, she's still kicking it, So like my grandmother was. But it's really cool stuff. But so please, because I know the audience, your fans are going to want to give us a little abuelita. Tell us, can abuelita come out and tell us about some of these Pokemon characters that she follows? Habla un poco, abuelita. Please come to us. Talk to us about what's on your mind, or talk to us about some of these Pokemon characters. You're trying to figure out who they are.
Bueno, los Pokémongo.
Pokémongo, sí.
Esos Pokémongo no lo entiendo para carajo.
¿Por qué, abuelita? ¿Por qué?
Porque son feos. Imagínate tú si estoy caminando por la calle y me encuentro con uno de esos monstruos bien feos.
Sí, esos diabolitos, ¿verdad?
Sí, pero el problema es con el tiki-tiki. Porque los niños hoy en día no hablan con las personas. Siempre están en el tiki-tiki, con el Facebook y con el Nintendo y el Pokémongo. Pero los nietos míos ya no están hablando de Pokémongo.
Pero conoció a Nirodina en Cuba, ¿verdad que sí?
Nirodina,
¿Qué nombre
sí, era mi vecina en Cuba. Hizo una sopa de pollo riquísimo. La Nidorina esa, como acabó la Nidorina, la verdad.
Pero abuelita, yo lo vi en YouTube,
Ajá.
que tú juegues Pokémon. Salió de su casa para jugar Pokémon ese día.
No, yo no. Eso no me meto.
No, yo lo vi en YouTube, pero mija, yo lo vi en YouTube.
El YouTube es para los niños jóvenes. Yo no entiendo mierda de YouTube y el Facebook y el Snapchat ese que es... Ay, Dios mío. Los niños con el Snapchat ese. ¿Viste ese perrito? El que hace el perrito con la lengua.
Sí.
Las muchachas se creen. Ay, look at me. I'm so pretty. I have dog ears. Yo no entiendo eso, chico.
Fíjate, yo no entiendo eso también.
Y también los filters. Porque...
Sí, explica un poco de los filters, abuelita.
Ay, no. Es que it's not realistic eso. Imagínate tú si en mi tiempo si habían filters. I wasn't, ¿cómo se dice? I wasn't lucky enough. Yo tenía cosas en la cara y too bad. Se ve todo. Hoy en día la gente se cubre de todo. Y hay una cosa con el Photoshop y la mierda. La gordita se pone flaca. La que no tiene, tú sabes, seno, se pone seno. Y nadie sabe lo que es real. Imagínate tú. Y el Tinder ese también está de madre. El Tinder.
Oh, sí, Tinder,
Como la tendedera, el Tinder.
Sí, el Tinder, sí. ¿Tiene un profile ahí en Tinder, abuelita?
No, yo no quiero viejos.
No.
Están acabando los viejos. Están acabando. No.
Just a little. Jenny provides us just a little taste of that abuelita character. Thank you so much. That stuff is so funny. You know, I'm curious how you for Cubans, it's just a no-brainer. It's just, and in Puerto Ricans, again, our stuff is really, you know, our tone and our cultural stuff is really similar. I'm curious, how do other groups relate? What kind of response do you get from different people to the character?
You know, I try to, even though she's obviously Cuban because of me, you know, I'm Cuban and my accent is clearly Cuban. But I try to keep the stuff that she talks about pretty relatable across, you know, Caribbean and Latin American cultures. And even I've received like a lot of Jewish people, Italians, Greeks, Irish folks coming at, you know, like Filipinos especially. I consider Filipinos to be like our cousins, you know, because there's so many similarities. It's insane.
Yeah. Oh, culturally, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like it's especially the immigrant experience. So a lot of them relate to the, you know, Sedanos bags tucked in the drawers, and they relate to, you know, the Tupperware, you know, I can't believe it's not butter containers with the frijoles inside, and the ever so popular dance cookies that you open it and it's a sewing kit. And also, not just that, it's the superstitions, it's the remedies when you're sick. There's a lot of similarities across cultures, especially in Latin America. So it seems like a lot of people aren't so much bothered by the fact that, okay, well, this is obviously a Cuban abuela. I think they just, in general, relate. They're like, oh my God, this is my grandma, you know? And I think that's really great, you know? I really wasn't expecting... I was terrified when I brought this character to BuzzFeed, especially, because at that point, BuzzFeed hadn't really delved into character work. It was very realistic, raw, you know, very minimalistic acting in their videos. And then here I come with this freaking wig and batacasa, and we hadn't started Pero Like yet. So this was going on your regular BuzzFeed outlets, and I was like, it was mortifying. And it somehow did well. And I was extremely surprised. I don't know if it's because a lot of Latinos already are accepting of that kind of comedy, thanks to like Saulo Gigante, you know, where it's just like, put on a wig and we believe you, you know what I mean? So it was definitely like reverting back, and granted, obviously, you know, places like SNL, you know, watch Key and Peele, Portlandia, these are all, you know, shows I really look up to with their character work. But I was afraid that, you know, outlets like BuzzFeed were, you know, like these kind of digital media platforms that are very new, I didn't know if they were ready to see that kind of stuff. It's almost like when you try to do, you know, physical comedy and pratfalls and stuff, very Three Stooges, you know, or Lucille Ball, like, are people going to still find that funny? You know, you always worry about that when you revert to, like, more old school comedy tactics.
Well, I'll say two things about it, Jenny. It doesn't surprise me, and I take two things on it from my perspective as a fan and someone that consumes the content and tries to pay attention to this stuff a little bit. I think the first thing is that I think in general, particularly Latinos, we're so and acculturated Latinos, that kind of live in both worlds. I think we're so starved for just real representations of who we are, for real, that we'll gravitate to it. And so I think that's just one thing. So the fact that it's authentic and real, I think is half the battle, regardless of the platform. Regardless, I mean, look, even on the comic book network, you got a little play out of it, So because of its realness, and I think the other thing, which I think is somewhat cultural too, is that, and again, ella no vieja, what I mean? She's abuelita, but she's in charge. She's full of life, and I think that resonates with us culturally. Kind of the dirty secret of this supposed macho culture is that the women are in charge, and particularly the abuelas of our community. They're the ones running the show. When it comes to the family, then they still live with us. We live 4 generations in a house, and in terms of our kind of how we operate as a family culturally, spiritually, is very much dictated. The tone is set by our abuelas and the women in our lives. So I think that's always been my theory about the Kardashians, which is kind of seems weird at first, but I've always kind of felt like it. These ethnic women, I don't know how ethnic they are. These ethnic brunettes walk around bossing everybody around, and they're totally in charge, and the men are just sort of happy to be there. And I'm kind of like, well, that's a lot of Latino households I'm familiar with. So I don't know. I think there's something to that. This sort of, girl power thing that has a little bit of an ethnic cultural tinge to it. So anyway, but it doesn't surprise me. And the bottom line, it's good. It's real. She's hilarious. Look, we could say, we're all Latino, but we all know that. And I can say this as a Puerto Rican, the Cubano tiene ese sabor. Y'all got it. Whatever it is, y'all got it. So it works. What are you going to do about it? And we're talking to Jenny Lorenzo, one of our great YouTube stars, and I hope we can keep in touch with this woman because she has a lot to say, not only about her art and highlighting great characters and great people, personas like her Cuban Abuela character, but many other characters and other types of content she's producing. Jenny, I did one more question, and I want to make sure you get a chance to hear from your fans. I would imagine that now with Snapchat and Instagram stories, this is like a whole other way of kind of doing short form stuff. Mm-hmm. And I posted to get your fans excited for your show, to try to solicit some questions on Facebook. I put your latest Como Bielderia Snapchat contribution earlier this evening. So as a comedian, how is and a Latina that's sort of right in that Snapchat Instagram demo, how are you how have these platforms helped you grow your art, and how it's gives you a different platform, that short form, which is a little different than your YouTube stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, I just started using Snapchat like 6 months ago. It took me a long time to give it a shot porque there's a lot of shit I don't understand. So what's kept me hanging on to Snapchat is their filters. I think they're brilliant. I think they're great, especially because, and I want to bring this character back, before, while I was still doing aggressive comics more frequently, back when I was still in Miami, I created this character named Jenny Derpenzo. And it was, I don't know if those filters that come with your iMac from the photo booth application. I started to mess around with the face warping. And there was one in particular that stuck with me that made me look a certain way. And the moment I saw that it changed my face, I immediately, like, a voice just came out. And, she talks like this, and she hates everything, and she fucking complains all the time. And I just started bitching about things as this character, and people really started to like her. So Snapchat does something similar for me, where they rotate these funny filters, and some of them warp your face. So it really helps me come up with new characters and new voices, which is why right now I still prefer Snapchat over Instagram stories. I love Instagram as a platform in and of itself. I use it frequently. I post between 1 to 3 times a day. But I'm still not sold on Instagram stories because I think what does it for me are those filters that are applied to your face where you can just be any character you want to be. That's my way of entertaining on Snapchat. I don't really utilize it to communicate with friends. I do every once in a while, but really I just go in there, do the characters, send them off. I don't really know what my following is on Snapchat. I don't know how to figure that out yet. I'm a mess. I'm just like, I'm just going to do this and, send it off into the universe.
So we're not going to catch you on a Friday night getting ratchet at a club on Snapchat, Jenny? That's always great.
I know.
One of my favorite things to do. I know. Before I go to bed at 2, 3 in the morning on the East Coast, I'll see what kind of ratchet behavior my friends on the West Coast are doing. It's very entertaining.
I forget sometimes though to document if I'm doing something or I'm on a shoot, and then at the end of the day I'm like, "Coño, I should have done Snapchat. This would have been cool."
Yeah, right.
I forget.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who hasn't figured out Snapchat. I don't think it's ultimately like my platform, frankly, but I just and I enjoy it. I think it's cool, and some people are really good at it. But I still can't. I have a brother that's a hip hop artist who should be a comedian. He's hysterical. Ray Collazo, Planetary. Follow him on Snapchat, but he's so good at it. But he knows how to use the filters and the eyes and funny voices, and it's just I still haven't even really figured it out. But anyway, got to step up my social media game. But Jenny Lorenzo, you've been such a wonderful ray of light on the show, and we got to have you back many times. But I want to make sure you hear from your audience, your fans. So I've been putting out there the last few days that I'm going to interview the famous Jenny Lorenzo, and I really believe, Jenny, in seriousness, the next few years are going to be really life changing for you. You're just really on the precipice of some more great things. So really great to have you on now, and in the future. And so definitely want to let you know that when I solicited my audience members for questions for Jenny Lorenzo, our YouTube sensation, all they could do was tirar flores, just they were so excited I was doing this. They just couldn't get their thoughts together. So from Jason Lorenzo, un cubano from DC, great guy. I want to connect you with Jason. Tremendo salsero también, great dancer amongst many talents. Oh, yeah. All Jason could say was, love her material, can't wait to listen. So you got a fan waiting for this episode. Another fan, Ray Collazo, un boricua, one of my young boys from Philadelphia, another great dancer. He actually has his own salsa dance troupe. Wow. OMG, please do the show live. I mean, he just wants to see you, girl. He wants to see you. But my favorite response was from a great friend of the show, Vanessa Rivera, un boricua. No boricua, she lives in the Tampa area now. And I'm going to do this in my best Puerto Rican street girl voice. Why didn't you tag me on this post? We love her. And then her girlfriend, Donna, another great friend of ours, goes, pero yo no sabía, ¿por qué yo no sabía? She's awesome and should be on SNL, which I agree with.
Oh, so sweet.
So just to give you a flavor, Jenny, I mean, you don't even know the impact you've already made to your fans and your internet community out there. So I just wanted to share those shout outs, share that love with you, Jenny. I know it's got to be great to hear from people you never met that are thousands of miles away that are following what you're doing.
It really feels like they're just my long lost primos and primas. Like for real. That's how I see it. It's really great, honestly. Like it's weird because I feel like a lot of that love primarily is coming from Florida, because of the Caribbean content I produce, but it's really just, I don't know, it hasn't settled in yet for me, and just hearing this is really great. So I appreciate you reading the comments, and I wish ideally I can just grab a big ass house and have everyone come over and we have pastelitos and salsa music.
Well, the way it's going, my friend, I'm going to be connecting you with our Jim Lujan, some of our other content creators out there. And, of course, my Cuban brother out in L.A., Nisim Leon, the Cuban Lion, who I was telling you about before we started taping, who now is who's now your biggest fan. He showed your Abuelita video to his parents who can relate to that generation, so you can imagine some of their feedback. They thought it was a hoot. And he definitely, at some point we'll connect you guys in L.A. he's becoming a big fan, and he said, you know, you have another Cuban cousin out in LA to get some good ropa vieja and black beans, the real
amazing.
stuff. So
Yes.
we got a lot of it's a family affair here, and again, you're listening to Jenny Lorenzo here on Ray's Talk Show, and we are so blessed to have her. She's given us so much time. Jenny, as we wrap this up, remind people where they can find you on social media and anything else you'd like to share with our Ray's Talk Show community.
Well, you can find all of my social media platforms on jennylorenzo.com at the very bottom of the page. You can also view all my videos there. You can also check out my new channel, which is youtube.com/jennylorenzo. If you want my geeky stuff, you go to youtube.com/aggressivecomics. But my website is really going to direct you to everything. My Instagram, my Snapchat, my Facebook page. And, you know, I want to thank everyone who's, you know, supported me by, you know, whether you share a video or you tag a friend or you've written me messages. It really helps me. Just, you motivate me, you inspire me to just keep doing what I'm doing. Because as anybody in this industry, any artist is incredibly doubtful and insecure, and like there's times that you just want to, you know, you not quit, but it can get very tough. So it is beyond appreciated when someone just goes out of their way to just say something really nice, or even share their family photos and history. Again, like everyone on my page or that comments on my stuff, to me, they're like family. They're like friends that I feel if we met in person, we would become close friends. And I'm just very thankful. So, you know, just know that you're appreciated.
Well, no, Jenny, we appreciate you, and let me tell you something. You know, as someone that does this because of how much I believe in others and all the people that are around me that I've associated with, and you know, I remember being. It was one of the scariest moments of my life. Of course, you would know the legendary Norman Lear. Mm-hmm. And Norman Lear, at one point in my life, I worked for an organization he was on the board of. So this is, you know, about 7-8 years ago. You can imagine, Jenny, a guy that grew up in North Philly is on the top of the Hollywood Hills in Norman Lear's house. And I walk into Norman Lear's house, and all of his Emmys, you know, he's got, I don't know, 70 of them or something, are on this ledge. And there was all these books. And I said, oh, what are those books? They were like, that's every original manuscript of every sitcom I ever wrote. Can you imagine? Wow. That collection, being in front of that collection. And so, you know, imagine that moment. And I remember sitting on his deck, eating dinner. And I remember looking out at the Hollywood Hill, you know, I mean, imagine the moment. And it hit me. I said, well, I wouldn't be here unless I belonged on some level. And it was quite a lesson for me that, you know, we have to, you know, we can achieve, the only limit to what we can achieve is in our mind. Mm-hmm. And the fact, Jenny, that you've gone for it and you've gone all the way, you've moved to LA, and which I know I'm sure for a Cubano from Miami could be scary. That's another conversation we need to have at some point. And you're just going for it. And I
would love to come back.
Yeah, you can see it in your art. You can see it.
I want to keep talking about all these topics. This is great.
Oh yeah, no, this is you're going to. Don't worry about it. I don't go away easily. We'll definitely be in touch. But I can see it in your art that you're going for it, and you're doing it. You're doing your dream, and you're living it. Yeah. I mean, look. I mean, the first thing on your mind after this man passes away is how are you going to respond for yourself and your fans? You have to, you know, it's in your heart, and so I really appreciate what you're doing, and keep doing it. I think you have so much more to share. And again, you've been listening to Jenny Lorenzo, aka the Cuban Abuela, one of many characters you can see on her various platforms. In particular, check out just jennylorenzo.com. And again, Jenny, thank you for shining a ray of light on the show, and look forward to having you back very soon.
Thank you so much, Ray. You're the best.
Oh, thank you so much. And if we don't talk before the end, as my grandmother, my Puerto Rican abuela would say, Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's,
Happy New Year. Y yo, Gray, ponte los blumes rojos. Tira el cubo de agua. ¿Qué más? ¿Qué más hay? Hay muchas cosas. Tiene que caminar con el suitcase if you want to travel.
That's right. Thank you so much, Jenny. Thanks for listening to Ray's Talk Show. For more insights from your virtual big brother, Ray Collazo, and the Big Brother Ray community, subscribe to Ray's Talk Show at BigBrotherRay.com or on iTunes. To my rays of light, keep shining.